The small scout ship shook violently as it entered Earth's atmosphere. Inside, Kayla gripped her control panel, her four-fingered hands trembling. This was not how her first mission was supposed to go. The unexpected solar flare had damaged her ship's main drive, and now she was falling toward the planet's surface with limited control. Command ship, this is Scout 7. I am losing altitude. Request immediate assistance, Kayla called through her communication device. Her voice was musical, but filled with fear. The reply came back broken. Scout 7. Protocols. No direct intervention. Humans must not. Kayla understood. The Vexeri High Command had been clear. Under no circumstances were they to reveal themselves to humans. Their mission was to observe only. Humans were classified as a potentially dangerous species, too violent to join the Galactic Conclave without further study. The trees of the Pacific Northwest forest rushed up to meet her craft. Kayla braced for impact. The ship crashed through branches and slammed into the snowy ground, skidding nearly 100 yards before coming to rest half-buried in snow and dirt. Pain shot through her body. Kayla looked down to see her right leg bent at an unnatural angle. One of her breathing tubes had disconnected from her environmental suit. Earth's oxygen was richer than what her species breathed, and it made her dizzy. She could feel blood, pale blue and thin, seeping from cuts along her arms. "Help," she whispered into her communicator. "Please help." Hours passed. The winter sun began to set, casting long shadows through the forest. Kayla drifted in and out of consciousness. The temperature dropped quickly. Her species wasn't built for cold. Their home planet was warm and humid. She tried to drag herself from the wreckage, but the pain was too great. A small light appeared in the darkening sky. Hope flared in Kayla's chest. The recovery ship had come for her. The craft that landed was much smaller than she expected. 3 of her kind stepped out wearing full protective gear. They approached cautiously, scanning the area with detection devices. "Quickly," the leader said, his voice coming through his helmet speaker. Human settlement detected 11 kilometers south. Their detection systems may have noticed the crash. The second Vexori reached Kayla and ran a medical scanner over her body. Multiple fractures. Internal bleeding. Environmental suit compromised. "Can we move her?" the leader asked. "Not safely. She requires stabilization before transport." The third Vexeri looked nervously at the sky. "We don't have time." Human aircraft approaching. Military designation. The leader made a gesture of deep regret, a cultural movement that Kayla recognized immediately. Her heart sank. "We cannot risk exposure," the leader said. "The mission parameters are clear. First contact must occur through proper diplomatic channels." "You're leaving me." Kayla's voice was weak. "We will return with a proper medical team and extraction equipment," the leader promised. "The diplomatic process will be accelerated, 3 days at most." "I won't survive 3 days," Kayla said. The second Vexeri placed a small device next to her. "Emergency supplies. Enough oxygen and nutrients for 48 hours. Hide your craft as best you can." They backed away. The leader made the gesture of apology again. "The needs of all Vexeri outweigh the needs of one. We cannot risk a diplomatic incident. Humans are unpredictable and potentially violent. We will return as soon as possible." Kayla watched as they boarded their ship and disappeared into the night sky. Alone now, she used the last of her strength to pull snow and branches over her craft. The effort left her exhausted. The pain in her body was overwhelming. As darkness fell completely, snow began to fall. Kayla looked up at the alien stars of Earth's sky. She had studied this world for years, fascinated by its people and their contradictions. Now she would die here, alone and forgotten. In the distance, she heard a strange howling sound. Earth wildlife. Kayla closed her eyes, trying to calm her racing heart. "Someone please find me," she whispered to the empty forest. Alan Barnes pulled his wool hat lower over his ears as the cold winter wind bit at his face. He had been hiking for 3 hours through the dense forest. The backpack filled with camping gear weighed on his shoulders, but he welcomed the strain. Physical pain was easier to deal with than the memories. 6 months back from his last tour as a combat medic, Alan still couldn't sleep through the night. His therapist suggested this solo camping trip. Get away from people. Find peace in nature. So far, it wasn't working. Last night, while setting up his tent, Alan had seen what looked like a falling star crash somewhere to the north. This morning, curiosity got the better of him. He changed his planned route to investigate. Probably just a meteorite, he muttered to himself as he climbed over a fallen tree. His breath made small clouds in the cold air. The forest grew thicker. Alan checked his compass and continued north. Then he noticed something odd. Broken tree branches forming a path of destruction. Following the trail, he came upon a mound of snow that didn't look natural. What the hell? Alan approached carefully. Parts of the mound reflected sunlight in a way snow shouldn't. He brushed away some of the covering to reveal a smooth metal surface, unlike anything he had ever seen. Heart racing, Alan uncovered more of the object. It was clearly not from Earth. The design was too strange, the metal too perfect. A spacecraft. A real alien spacecraft. "Hello," he called out, not really expecting an answer. "Anyone there?" A faint sound came from inside the craft. Something like a whimper. Alan's training kicked in immediately. Someone was hurt. He found what appeared to be a hatch, and after examining it for a moment, figured out how to open it. The interior was small and dark. The air that rushed out smelled strange, sweet and thick. Alan pulled out his flashlight and peered inside. What he saw made him step back in shock. A creature lay half-conscious in what looked like a pilot's seat. He somehow knew it was female, wasn't human. Her skin was pale blue with a slight shimmer. She had 2 arms and 2 legs like a human, but her hands had only 4 long fingers. Her face was almost human, but her eyes were larger, and she had no visible nose, just 2 small breathing slits. The alien's leg was clearly broken. Blue liquid, blood, seeped from several wounds. A shattered glass tube hung from her mouth. The medic in Alan took over. He had treated hundreds of wounded soldiers. This was just another patient who needed help. "Hey there," he said softly, the way he talked to injured children in the war zone. "I'm not going to hurt you." The alien's eyes fluttered open. They were deep purple with no pupils. She made a frightened sound and tried to move away, but pain stopped her. "Easy now," Alan said. He slowly showed her his empty hands. "I'm a medic, a doctor. I want to help." The alien watched him, breathing fast and shallow. Alan carefully reached for his medical kit. He pulled out gauze pads and began to stop the bleeding from her arm wound. The alien flinched but didn't fight him. Outside, the wind picked up. Snow was falling harder now. Alan knew he had to make a decision fast. The alien wouldn't survive much longer in this cold, and his tent wasn't big enough for both of them. "My cabin is about 2 miles from here," he said, though he knew she couldn't understand him. "I need to get you somewhere warm." The alien seemed to sense his intentions. She made a small gesture with her hand that Alan couldn't interpret. Alan searched the spacecraft for anything that might help. He found a small device that seemed important to her. He placed it in his pocket. Then, using branches and his emergency blanket, he created a makeshift stretcher. With extreme care, Alan moved the alien onto the stretcher. She was surprisingly light. As he lifted her out of the craft, her eyes met his. There was fear there, but also something else. Hope. "I've got you," Alan said firmly. "You're going to be okay." The journey to Alan's cabin was difficult. The snow fell harder with each passing minute. Alan pulled the makeshift stretcher carefully over the uneven ground, stopping often to check on his strange patient. The alien drifted in and out of consciousness, making soft sounds that might have been words in her language. After nearly 2 hours of slow progress, the small wooden cabin finally came into view. Alan had never been so happy to see the simple structure. He unlocked the door and gently carried the alien inside. The cabin was basic but warm. A wood stove in the corner gave off steady heat. There was a small kitchen, a bathroom, and one bedroom. Alan placed the alien on his bed and quickly built up the fire in the stove. "First things first," he said, talking to fill the silence. "Let's get you warmed up and take a better look at those injuries." The alien watched him with large purple eyes. She seemed less afraid now, but pain showed clearly on her face. Alan gathered his medical supplies and approached slowly. "I'm going to help you," he said, pointing to himself, and then to her. "Help. Understand?" To his surprise, the alien made a gesture that looked like a nod. Maybe they weren't so different after all. Alan cleaned and bandaged her wounds as best he could. The broken leg was the worst problem. He needed to set it, but he wasn't sure if her bones worked the same way as human bones. He decided to splint it for now. While working, Alan noticed the breathing tube hanging from her mouth. It seemed to connect to a small tank on her belt. He carefully examined it and found where it had broken. Using medical tape, he created a temporary seal. The alien took a deep breath once the tube was fixed. Color returned to her blue skin. She made a sound that might have been thanks. Alan smiled. "You're welcome. My name is Alan." He pointed to himself. "Alan." The alien watched him for a moment. Then she pointed to herself. "Kayla." Alan's eyes widened. "Kayla, that's your name." "Name, Kayla," she repeated, her voice musical and strange. Alan sat back, amazed. "You can understand me. You speak English?" Kayla shook her head. From a pocket in her suit, she pulled out a small device. It glowed with soft light. "Learn words," she said slowly. "Device helps." Over the next few hours, as night fell outside, Alan and Kayla worked to understand each other. The device seemed to help her learn English quickly, though she spoke in simple phrases. Alan learned that Kayla was from a planet called Vexer. Her people had been watching Earth for many years. This was her first mission to study humans up close. "Why did your people leave you?" Alan asked. Kayla's expression changed to something sad. "Humans, dangerous. My people, afraid. Afraid of humans, of me." Kayla nodded. "Stories of humans, fighting, killing. My people peaceful, no violence." Alan thought about his time as a combat medic, about the terrible things he had seen humans do to each other. He couldn't deny that humans could be violent. But that wasn't the whole story. "We can also be kind," he said softly. "We help each other. I want to help you." Kayla studied his face. "Why help me? I am not human." Alan shrugged. "Doesn't matter. You needed help. That's enough reason." Outside, the wind howled as the snowstorm grew stronger. Alan checked Kayla's splint and gave her water to drink. She was getting weaker. Her breathing seemed labored despite the fixed tube. "Your people," Alan said. "Will they come back for you?" Kayla touched the device at her side. "Signal sent. 3 days, maybe more." Alan looked at her injuries. He wasn't sure she had 3 days. Without proper medical equipment, her condition would get worse. "Then we better make sure you're still here when they come back," he said firmly. Morning came with clear skies. Alan woke early and checked on Kayla. Her breathing was better, but her skin had a grayish tint that worried him. The splint on her leg seemed to be working, but without proper medicine, infection was a real danger. Kayla opened her eyes when Alan touched her forehead. "Morning," she said in her musical voice. Her English was improving quickly thanks to the device. "How do you feel?" Alan asked. "Pain. Less," she said. "But weak. Need special medicine." Alan nodded. "Is there any medicine on your ship?" Kayla thought for a moment. "Yes. Small box. Green light. "I'll go get it," Alan said. "You rest." Outside, fresh snow covered the ground. Alan followed his tracks from yesterday back toward the crash site. As he neared the area, he heard something that made him drop to the ground. Voices, human voices. Carefully, Alan crept forward until he could see the crash site. 5 people in black uniforms were examining Kayla's ship. They had equipment and were taking samples. Government agents, Alan guessed. Military or some secret agency. "Perimeter secure, Agent Wright," one of the men said to a tall woman with short brown hair. "Good," she replied. "Any sign of the pilot?" "Blood trails leading north. The storm covered most tracks, but it looks like someone or something left the crash site." Agent Wright nodded. "Expand the search. 5-mile radius. Whatever was in this ship couldn't have gone far in this weather, especially if it was injured." Alan's heart raced. They were hunting Kayla. He needed to get back to the cabin and warn her. But first, he had to get that medicine. He waited until the agents moved to the other side of the ship. Then he quietly approached the craft. The hatch was open. Alan slipped inside and quickly searched until he found a small box with a green light. He grabbed it and a few other items that looked useful, then exited the ship. Just as he was about to slip away, a voice called out, "Hey, stop right there." Alan ran. Shots rang out behind him, but he zigzagged through the trees. His time in combat zones had taught him how to move quickly while staying covered. After about a mile, he stopped and listened. No sounds of pursuit. He had lost them for now. When Alan finally returned to the cabin, Kayla looked at him with concern. "You hurt?" "No, I'm fine." Alan showed her the medicine box. "But we have a problem. People are looking for you. Government agents." Fear showed in Kayla's large eyes. "What they want?" "I don't know, but I heard them talking about capturing you." Alan helped Kayla use the medicine. It was a spray that seemed to ease her pain immediately. "Cannot let them find me," Kayla said, her voice stronger now. "My people. Strict rules about contact. If humans capture me, bad things happen." "What kind of bad things?" Kayla looked sad. "My people will think. Humans hostile. May never contact Earth again. Or worse." Alan didn't like the sound of that worse. He checked outside the cabin window. No sign of the agents yet, but they would expand their search soon. "We need to move," he decided. "I have a friend with a place deeper in the mountains. It's about 20 miles from here." "Cannot walk," Kayla said, pointing to her broken leg. "I know. I'll carry you if I have to." Alan began packing supplies. "But we can't stay here. Those agents will find this cabin eventually." As if to confirm his words, a distant sound of helicopter rotors echoed through the valley. They were expanding their search from the air now. Kayla touched Alan's hand. "Why risk for me? Your people will punish you." Alan thought about his time as a medic, about the oath he had taken to preserve life. "Because it's the right thing to do. And I'm not going to let them treat you like some lab specimen." He helped Kayla put on his spare winter clothes to hide her alien appearance. The helicopter sounds grew louder. "We need to go now," Alan said. Alan moved quickly around the cabin, gathering supplies. Food, water, medicine, warm clothes. He stuffed everything into his large backpack. Kayla watched from the bed. The alien medicine had helped her pain, but she was still weak. Her leg was splinted and useless. "How will we travel?" she asked. Her English was much better now. Alan pulled an old sled from under the cabin porch. "I'll pull you on this. It's how we move injured people in the snow." The sound of the helicopter grew louder, then faded as it moved to another area. They didn't have much time. Alan helped Kayla onto the sled. He wrapped her in blankets and pulled a hat low over her face to hide her alien features. With her 4-fingered hands in gloves and her blue skin covered, she could pass for human from a distance. "My friend Frank has a hunting cabin 20 miles north." Alan explained as he secured her to the sled. It's hard to find unless you know where to look. We should be safe there. Kayla touched his arm. You risk much for me. Alan nodded. I know. He didn't say more. How could he explain that helping her felt right? That after years of seeing the worst of humanity in war zones, saving this alien felt like saving something in himself. They left through the back of the cabin, Alan pulling the sled along a narrow path into the forest. The fresh snow made pulling harder, but also covered their tracks. They needed to move fast before the next helicopter sweep. After 2 hours of hard travel, they stopped in a small clearing. Alan checked Kayla's leg and gave her water to drink. Your people, he said. Will they really come back for you? Kayla nodded. Yes, but she hesitated. They will be careful. Humans scare them. Why? What have we done? Kayla looked sad. We watch Earth for many years. See wars, violence, weapons that can destroy worlds. Alan couldn't argue with that. We're not all bad, he said softly. I know now, Kayla replied, looking at him with her large purple eyes. A sound in the distance made them both freeze. Dogs barking. The search parties had brought tracking dogs. We need to move, Alan said urgently. The dogs will find our scent. He pulled the sled faster now, no longer worried about being gentle. Kayla held on tight, trying not to make sounds of pain when they hit rough spots. They crossed a small frozen stream. Alan led them through the water where it wasn't completely frozen, hoping to throw off the dogs. By mid-afternoon, they were deep in the mountains. The helicopter sounds were gone, but the barking of dogs still echoed in the distance. Alan was tired. Pulling the sled uphill through snow was exhausting work. Need to rest, Kayla said, seeing his fatigue. Can't, Alan panted. Dogs getting closer. Just then, they heard a new sound. An engine. Alan pulled Kayla behind a large rock and peered around carefully. A snowmobile appeared on a trail below them. The rider wore hunting clothes and carried a rifle. Alan relaxed slightly when he recognized the person. Frank, he called out. The rider looked up, surprised. He cut the engine and pushed up his goggles. Alan, what the hell are you doing out here? Frank was a big man with a red beard. He had served with Alan in the same unit. Need help, Alan said, stepping out from behind the rock. Government agents after us. Frank frowned. Us? He walked closer and saw Kayla on the sled. His eyes widened when he noticed her alien features that the hat couldn't completely hide. Holy shit, he whispered. Is that? I'll explain everything, Alan said quickly. But we need to get to your cabin now. Please, Frank. Frank stared at Kayla for a long moment. Then at the distant sound of dogs. He nodded firmly. Follow me, he said. There's a shortcut the dogs won't find. Alan felt relief wash over him. They had found an ally. Frank's cabin was smaller than Alan's but better hidden. It sat in a narrow valley, surrounded by thick pine trees. From the air, it was almost impossible to see. No one knows about this place except me and a few friends, Frank said, as he helped Alan carry Kayla inside. My grandfather built it for hunting off the grid. No electricity, no phone. The inside was simple. One room with a wood stove, a table, 2 chairs, and a bed. Frank quickly started a fire in the stove while Alan made Kayla comfortable on the bed. So, Frank said, once the cabin was warming up, you going to tell me why you're running from the government with an alien? Alan told Frank everything. Finding Kayla's crashed ship, treating her wounds, learning about her people, and the government agents hunting them. Frank listened without interrupting. When Alan finished, he let out a long breath. That's one hell of a story. Will you help us? Alan asked. Frank looked at Kayla, who watched him with her large purple eyes. Your people really abandoned you because they're scared of humans. Kayla nodded. They fear what they do not understand. They see human history, wars, weapons, Violence. Fair enough, Frank admitted. We don't have the best track record. But not all humans are the same, Kayla said. Alan helped me when my own people left me to die. Frank nodded slowly. All right, I'm in. He moved to the window and looked outside. But those agents aren't going to give up easily. They'll keep searching these mountains. Kayla's people will come back for her, Alan said. We just need to hide her until then. And how long will that be? Ellen looked at Kayla. She held up her communication device. Signal weak, she said. Mountains block it. Need to reach high ground, clear sky. Frank went to a shelf and pulled down an old map. There's a clearing on top of Miller's Ridge, about 5 miles from here. Good view of the sky in all directions. Can we get there? Ellen asked. Not easy. Steep climb. And your friend can't walk. Frank studied the map. There's an old fire lookout tower up there. We could hole up there, send your signal, and wait for pickup. Suddenly, a new voice spoke from the doorway. Well, this is interesting. They all turned. A woman stood in the open door, a rifle in her hands. She had short blonde hair and wore winter camouflage. Frank relaxed. Grace, you scared the hell out of me. Grace Kelly stepped inside and closed the door behind her. Her eyes went straight to Kayla. When you radioed asking for medical supplies, I figured something was up. Didn't expect an ET situation. Grace was our unit's communications expert, Alan explained to Kayla. Best there is. Grace set down her pack and knelt beside Kayla. The government's going all out looking for you. Homeland Security, military, even NASA. They've got roadblocks on every road out of these mountains. How did you get through? Frank asked. Grace smiled. They're looking for a man and something non-human. Not a woman with medical credentials heading to help at a remote clinic. She opened her pack and pulled out medical supplies. Brought everything I could carry, including these. She held up 2 satellite phones. Secure line, military grade. Alan felt hope for the first time in days. Can you help boost Kayla's signal? Help her contact her ship? Grace examined Kayla's communication device with interest. I've never seen tech like this, but she smiled confidently. Give me a few hours. Outside, the sound of helicopter rotors echoed in the distance. They were still searching. Frank checked his rifle. They'll find the cabin eventually. We need a plan. How many agents? Grace asked. At least 20 that I saw, Alan replied. Maybe more now. Kayla tried to sit up. I should surrender. Too dangerous for you. Alan gently pushed her back down. Not happening. You're not facing them alone. Grace was already working on Kayla's device. If I can boost this signal, how long until your people arrive? Hours, maybe, Kayla said. Depends on their location. Frank looked out the window at the darkening sky. Then we need to hold off the government until help arrives. Against trained agents with more firepower? Alan asked. Frank smiled grimly. They may have more guns, but we know these mountains, and we have something they want. Grace looked up. We use Kayla as bait. No, Frank said. We use their hunt for Kayla to lead them exactly where we want them. Night fell over the mountains. Grace worked on Kayla's device, connecting it to her satellite equipment. Frank and Alan prepared for what was coming. We need to reach Miller's Ridge before dawn, Frank said, pointing at the map. The lookout tower gives us high ground and clear sight lines. Alan checked Kayla's splint. The alien medicine had helped, but she still couldn't walk. We'll need to carry her. I made a stretcher, Frank said. Between the 3 of us, we can manage. Grace looked up from her work. I've boosted the signal strength. Once we reach the ridge, it should be strong enough to reach orbit. Hope flickered in Kayla's eyes. Thank you, she said softly. As they prepared to leave, a sound outside made them freeze. Footsteps in the snow. Many footsteps. Frank peered through a small window. They found us, he whispered. At least 10 agents surrounding the cabin. A voice called through a megaphone. "This is Agent Carrie Wright, Homeland Security. We know you're in there. We know what you're hiding. Come out with your hands up." Alan looked at his friends, then at Kayla. "What now?" Frank moved to the back of the cabin. "Secret exit. My grandfather was paranoid. Built a tunnel." He pulled up a rug, revealing a trapdoor. "It comes out a quarter-mile away, behind those rocks. You three go," Grace said, picking up her rifle. "I'll create a distraction." Alan shook his head. "Too dangerous. I was the distraction specialist in our unit, remember?" Grace smiled. "Give me 15 minutes, then get Kayla to the ridge." Before anyone could argue, Grace grabbed a bag of supplies and slipped out a side window. Frank, Alan, and Kayla waited in tense silence. Then they heard shots in the distance, followed by shouts and the sound of people running. "That's our cue," Frank said, opening the trapdoor. The tunnel was narrow and cold. Alan went first, then they passed Kayla through, with Frank coming last. They crawled through darkness for what seemed like forever. Finally, they'd reached the exit, hidden among large rocks. Outside, they could see agents running toward the east, where Grace had set off flares and what sounded like small explosions. "She's leading them away from the ridge," Frank said. "Smart." They secured Kayla on the stretcher and began moving uphill. The night was clear and cold, the stars bright above them. Kayla looked up often, searching the sky. "Your people up there somewhere?" Alan asked as they climbed. "Yes," Kayla said. "Watching. Waiting." The climb was hard. Frank led the way, finding paths through the snow. Alan's arms burned from carrying the stretcher, but they kept moving. Halfway up, they heard a cry of pain from below. Grace was running toward them, holding her arm. Blood stained her jacket. "They're right behind me," she gasped as she reached them. Wright figured out the distraction. Frank looked down the mountain. Flashlight beams cut through the darkness below. "We need to move faster." They continued climbing, Grace now helping despite her wounded arm. The top of the ridge grew closer. Suddenly, a shot rang out. Snow exploded near Alan's foot. "Stop right there," Agent Wright's voice called from below. "You have nowhere to go." They reached the old fire tower just as more shots were fired. Frank kicked open the door, and they carried Kayla inside. The wooden structure was barely standing after years of neglect, but it gave them cover. Grace immediately connected Kayla's device to her equipment. "Signal strong now. Can you contact your ship?" Kayla's fingers moved over the device. It glowed with strange symbols. "Message sent. Now we wait." Outside, agents surrounded the tower. Wright's voice came through a megaphone again. "You're surrounded. Send out the alien, and you can all walk away." Frank checked his rifle. "I have 6 rounds. Not enough." Alan looked at Kayla, then at his friends. Both were wounded now. Grace shot in the arm, Frank limping from a fall during the climb. They had risked everything for a being they barely knew. "How long until your people arrive?" Alan asked Kayla. She looked at him with sad eyes. "Too long. You should surrender. I will go to them." "No," Alan said firmly. "We stay together." From below, Agent Wright gave her final warning. "You have 1 minute to surrender, or we're coming in." The minute passed quickly. Alan, Frank, and Grace stood protectively around Kayla. They had come too far to give up now. "Get ready," Frank said, positioning himself by the door. Outside, Agent Wright gave the order. "Move in." Agents began to approach the tower. Alan closed his eyes for a moment, thinking of everything that had brought him to this point. From battlefield medic to protector of an alien being. It felt right somehow. Then Kayla's device began to glow brighter. She looked at it with wide eyes. "They come." At first, nothing happened. Then a low hum filled the air. It grew louder, making the old tower shake. A brilliant light appeared in the night sky. growing larger by the second. The agents stopped their approach, looking up in confusion. Some raised their weapons at the sky. Others backed away. "What is that?" Grace whispered, watching through a broken window. The light became a large craft, unlike anything human-made. It hovered above the tower, bathing everything in bright blue light. The agents below shielded their eyes. "My people," Kayla said, relief in her voice. "They received my message." A beam of light shot down from the craft, passing through the tower's roof. It surrounded Kayla, lifting her gently from the stretcher. Her broken leg and other wounds began to glow as the light touched them. "They're healing her," Alan said in wonder. Agent Wright entered the tower, gun raised. "Stop. Nobody move." When she saw Kayla floating in a light beam, she froze. "Too late," Frank said, smiling. The beam expanded, encompassing Alan, Frank, and Grace as well. Alan felt a strange warmth spread through his body. Grace's wounded arm stopped bleeding. Frank stood straighter, his limp gone. Wright fired her weapon, but the bullet stopped in midair, hanging suspended before falling harmlessly to the floor. Kayla looked down at the agent. "No more violence," she said, her voice stronger now. "These humans protected me when my own people would not. They showed me the true nature of humanity." The tower began to shake more violently. Pieces of the roof broke away. Through the opening, a larger beam appeared, and they began to rise toward the ship. "Wait," Agent Wright called. "You can't take American citizens." Alan looked down at her. "We're not being taken. We're going willingly." He turned to Kayla. "Right." Kayla nodded. "My people must learn from you. Learn that humans are not just violent. They are brave, kind, and loyal." As they rose higher, Alan saw more ships appearing in the night sky. Dozens of them, all hovering silently above the mountain. The other agents ran back, dropping their weapons. "What's happening?" Grace asked. "First contact," Kayla said simply. "Real first contact. Not hiding, not watching, meeting." They entered the main ship through an opening in its bottom. Inside, more of Kayla's people waited. They looked at the humans with a mixture of fear and curiosity. A taller Vexari stepped forward. "Kayla, you have violated many protocols." "Yes," she agreed. "And I found truth because of it." She gestured to Alan, Frank, and Grace. "These humans risked their lives for me, a stranger, an alien. Their leaders hunted me, yes. But these individuals showed me that humans have great capacity for compassion." The leader looked at the three humans for a long moment, then made a gesture that Alan recognized as respect. "Perhaps we judged too quickly," the leader said. Outside, more ships descended. On the ground, Agent Wright and her team watched in awe. Military vehicles arrived, then news helicopters. The secret was out. Ellen looked at Kayla, now fully healed and standing proud. "What happens now?" Kayla took his hand in her four-fingered one. "Now we build bridges between my world and yours, beginning with three humans who showed me the best of humanity." Far below, the first light of dawn touched the mountains as the world changed forever.